Okay, guys, we're going to start the meeting. Good afternoon. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, 100%. We've got quite a full house here. I've got Glenn Skuman. I've got Professor Francois Malan with us. We are privileged to have people from Vietnam. Vietnam, where are you? Here we go, Vietnam. We've got people from Europe joining us. And we've got someone from the USA. And I see it's a flavor of the month that all of us have got the gray little goatees. So I think it's the new COVID look. But as long as you're not going outside, who cares what you look like? So guys, it's given us a lot of time to spend with the hobby that we love the most, and that's coin collecting, numismatics. I'm sure most of you have had the pleasure of enjoying your collections while you were locked down and sorting out stuff. I've been in contact with quite a few people. So welcome to our second meeting. I think the first one was a great success. And we said that we're going to pursue with this year, use the technology that's available, and we're going to ensure that we have structured talks that that we can have. We can get some good speakers to come and grace us. And yeah, so guys, as you're joining, I'm still admitting people in. As you're joining, please try and mute. I'm just using my iPad to talk to you guys, so it's difficult for me to concentrate on so many things at the same time. So if you mute, we're not going to get the echo. Welcome, Professor Francois Malan. Where are you? You there?
Thank you very much, Anthony. I'm sitting here.
Good. Glenn, I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to let you do the sort of welcome, and you're going to give us a little update as to what's happening in the numismatic front. You're going to give us an update as to what's happening with Sangs. You're going to give us an update with what's happening with the coin shows, and if you have any update from the South African Mint. Okay.
Thanks, Anthony. I hope everyone can hear me. Can we have a thumbs up? Can anyone hear me? Oh, we're okay. All right, guys. Anthony, thank you. I think firstly, a big thank you to Anthony for arranging this meeting. I think it's valuable time that we spend with people who have common interests. I think it's quite important that we have these meetings from time to time, especially with this COVID-19 situation we find ourselves in at the moment. Yeah, I have got a bit of numismatic news, if I can call it that I can share with you guys. At our previous meeting, you might recall that I actually shared with you what we had planned. Let's start with the big show. Durban Coin Fair at the Greyville Racecourse has been booked. It has been paid for. But unfortunately, as you all know, the Durban July has been cancelled at Greyville, and for that matter, so is our coin show. Our coin show was going to be the week after the Durban July. Not going to happen anymore. We have spoken to the guys at Greyville, and they very kindly have taken the funds that we've paid for the event, and they've carried them over until next year. We're planning to have it again the weekend after the Greyville, after the Durban July Greyville race that happens, which I'm sure everybody knows about. However, they cannot confirm it for us now. We're planning it basically a year ahead, but we'll see whether it in fact happens at that date or not. We aren't too sure at this stage. But yeah, we have booked it, so we're going to see what happens. The Johannesburg Coin Show also was booked in Joburg at a new venue, in Rosebank that we haven't been to before. That also, I'm afraid, has been put on ice. We haven't paid for it yet, but I've spoken to the organizers. So the Johannesburg Coin Show, God willing, will also happen hopefully in the first quarter of next year. Again, dates yet to be finalized. We don't know. I think the venue will probably be the same place that we planned, but definitely the date we're going to have to advise people closer to the time. We haven't been down to Cape Town for a number of years now. And it looks as though everyone in Cape Town is dying to have a coin show down there. So with a bit of luck, we are planning a new venue as well in Cape Town. Probably September, October of next year. That's probably the most suitable time to actually go down there. Again, dates yet to be confirmed. We can't confirm anything at this stage because nobody knows. I'd just like to go back briefly. We had a meeting of the National Numismatic Society a couple of months ago now. And I must say, those of you who attended that meeting, I'm sure that you will know exactly what I'm talking about. It was very heartwarming to see that there were so many people who attended that meeting. We had 61 people at that meeting, which I think it's probably the biggest meeting that I've attended with the NNS in the last 30 years. So the interest is there. There's no question. The people are out there. The people want to have these meetings. And it was wonderful to see the amount of people that attended that meeting. The interest is there. Anthony and I were discussing the other day that the first couple of weeks after lockdown, the markets were very active. Bid or buy was extremely active. Everything was running well. Everything was going brilliantly. And then slowly but surely, as it dragged to 3 weeks shutdown and then extended to another 2 and extended again and again, we've seen that the markets have gone very, very quiet. From the dealer's point of view, I would go so far as to say the coin industry is dead in the water right now. And that's why it's so much more important that we, as the people who are interested in this game, keep the flag flying and keep things going. Because generally, and I think everyone's feeling the pinch, most people are not doing the business that they have done previously. And for that very matter, there's not that much of, there's not much money around. People are all struggling. A lot of people are saying in this day and age, it's a case of survival more than anything else. I think that the days that we said, are we going to make money? That's not going to happen for quite a while. And we don't anticipate much happening for at least a year. So from the numismatic point of view, it's gone very quiet. But that's why I say again, it's important that we have these meetings from time to time. And as Anthony said, we want to have meetings like this where someone can give a bit of a talk, someone who's researched some stuff. And that's why we're so privileged to have Professor Francois Malan with us today. He's done a lot of research on a lot of very interesting subjects, and we're going to hear from him. So that's great stuff. Looking at what the industry itself is doing right now, the South African Mint is still in lockdown, except for the fact that they have decided it is important for them to make circulation coins. I'm not too sure who made that decision, but I actually don't agree with it, because they employ a couple of hundred people, at least 200 people, 250 people possibly, to make circulation coins. And they have felt that it is a necessary evil, if I can call it that, and that the SA Mint has now got a very large contingent of staff back into their factory, and they are making circulation coins. When we asked, when is the numismatic stuff going to be online again, and when are we going to get Krugerrands and silver Krugerrands? The answer was, and we got a letter from the guys during the course of this last week saying that the Reserve Bank did not consider it an essential service. So for that reason, they are very, very opposed to bringing in the 25, or let's say maximum 40 people required to get the numismatic section of the South African Mint going again. I find it inconceivable, and I have put such in writing to the South African Mint and to Rand Refinery, that they get hundreds of people there to make circulation coins, but they don't want to take 40 people in there to make numismatics and, of course, Krugerrands. Krugerrands are very much part and parcel of the profits that this country makes. As you might know, most of the Krugerrands in this country are for export anyway. So that external and that foreign revenue that we would have been getting from exporting Krugerrands is not happening at the moment. So it's disappointing. However, having said that, I have spoken to the guys at Rand Refinery and SA Mint, and they have told me now in recent times they are hoping to be up and running within the next 3 to 4 weeks from the Krugerrand's point of view. Now let's talk gold Krugerrands first, because that's the issue. Gold Krugerrands. We're hoping that we will have some gold Krugerrands in the next 3 to 4 weeks. If we look at what the gold price has done in recent times, it's gone crazy in terms of US dollars, which is how it's graded. The Krugerrand price, or the gold price, I should say, has gone very high. The other factor that influences the Krugerrand price, of course, is the rand-dollar exchange rate, which also has gone crazy. And the rand has lost tremendously against the dollar over the last 2 to 3 months. However, the last week or so, it's actually strengthened again. And I have yet to find someone who can tell me why the rand has strengthened against the dollar. I find it also very confusing. I don't see any reason why the rand should be coming stronger, because our country, as we know, was in an economic downturn prior to the lockdown. And quite honestly, things have only got worse, not better. So for one or other obscure reason, the rand has strengthened a bit. And I believe that Krugerrand should be minted as a matter of urgency. The guys at the Reserve Bank and at the SA Mint do not necessarily agree with me. In the absence of Krugerrands being on the market for investors like yourselves, who look at it and say, you know, the rand's losing value, the gold price is going up, let's buy Krugerrands as an investment. I don't think there is a single dealer in South Africa at the moment who can help you with stock. I don't have anything left either. And the little bit I get, I'm getting from guys buying here and there, and I'm buying bits and pieces. But generally, there is a critical shortage of Krugerrands. And again, supply and demand. So the prices are increasing all the time. We hope in the next 4 weeks we'll have some. Then we say, right, there's no gold Krugerrands. Let's look at the silver Krugerrands. Yes, everyone wants to invest in silver. We look at what's happening to the silver price, also going up, also being affected by the rand-dollar exchange rate. And what do we find? Guess what? Sorry, we cannot supply silver Krugerrands. It is so unfortunate, of course, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but silver Krugerrands are not manufactured in South Africa. They are manufactured in America. Now, if you have a company like the South African Mint who employs 350 people, I ask myself, why can we not manufacture our own silver Krugerrands in this country? I haven't really had a satisfactory answer as yet, but no, they come from America. And of course, with the flights, everything having been stopped and everything, there are no shipments of silver Krugerrands that have arrived in this country in the last 2.5 months. So there are no silver Krugerrands for sale. The market is stagnant at the moment as well. All of us are actually waiting. And again, we're being promised that within the next week or two, we were first told that by the end of May, we would have silver Krugerrands. Nothing yet. Yeah, in the next week or two, we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have some silver Krugerrands. It might be interesting. So those of you who want to invest, just hang in there. We'll see if anything happens. The other thing Anthony asked me to talk to you guys about is SANGS. With the rand-dollar exchange rate doing what it's doing at the moment, I know it's becoming increasingly expensive for anyone to send coins to NGC, which I know a lot of you prefer. However, SANGS is a South African company. We are operational. The doors are open. There's not a hell of a lot happening because the couriers, most coins have to be sent to us by courier at the moment. But for those of you who do want to grade coins, SANGS doors are open and we are grading. It's taken a bit longer to do things now because we can only get together once a week. But for those of you who want coins graded, yes, we can do it for you. In closing, I want to tell you guys a story, and I'd like Professor Francois Malan to elaborate on this a little bit later when he talks as well. In Francois's latest book, and he will be discussing it today, there was an article there about a coin that nobody knew even existed. About 10 days ago, I got a phone call from a gentleman who lives in Windhoek in Namibia. And his question to me was, he's looked through all the catalogs and all the reference libraries and all the books, and he has never been able to find out the price of a ZAR halfpenny. And of course, my comment to him was, well, as far as we know, there was never ever a ZAR halfpenny made. But in recent times, as we know, Professor Francois Malan has done some research, and there is record of ZAR halfpennies being made. Anthony's just put one on the screen there now that you can see. Apparently very similar, well, obviously similar to in design to the penny, but this is a halfpenny. We know very, very little about it. So I contacted this old guy. I spoke to him and I said, okay, what do you say? Are you saying you cannot find any record of it? I said, well, there's very little record about an 1892 or a ZAR halfpenny. Why? So he says, well, he's got one. So of course, I'm very excited to hear if he actually has got one. And I've been trying to contact him again now for the last couple of days. I can't get hold of him again, but I'm going to carry on. Because if there is somebody who has got an 1892 ZAR halfpenny, I think it's a very, very exciting find for the numismatic world in South Africa. But as I say, we will keep you informed. And I'm sure Francois Malan is going to talk about that a little bit in his chat as well. Anthony, that's about all I have to say at this stage. Thank you. Thank you for your time, for listening to me. I give it back to Anthony and we go from there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Glenn. Just a quick question before you mute yourself, Glenn. I know Francois will be smiling from ear to ear with the news that somebody has contacted you regarding a 1892 halfpenny, because that was something we've been talking about for a long time, whether one will actually surface. And if we can actually prove that it does exist, then boy, that is a great find. But a question that I have for you, and which has been circulating around in the numismatic world, it surrounds the South African Mint, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but what I would like to know is, has the South African Mint stopped the Protea 1 rands? Have you heard anything about that?
This is a question that I posed last week as well, Anthony. An interesting question, and I was answered quite negatively in that. What are you talking about? I said, I'm asking a plain, simple question. Have you stopped making the silver Protea 1 rands? And the answers I got from 3 people was, well, we're not sure, but we'll let you know. So I don't have an answer on that one yet. It's quite interesting. They haven't said whether they're making them or not. So we don't know what's going on there. But I'm on them, and I'm hoping to have a meeting with the South African Mint again this week. And of course, that's going to be on the top of my agenda with them.
Yeah, sure. Because that would be a travesty if that has to stop. Because, I mean, the South African Rand series, especially the Proteas with the commemoratives for each year, has proven to be a hit with many a collector, especially the uncirculated and the proofs, as single coins. A lot of people have been collecting the silver rands from 1965 onwards, both proofs and uncirculated. And you know, if they have decided to stop it, then maybe we as a numismatic community should air our concerns and you know, even take a petition to them to actually continue with it. You know, if they're running out of ideas, we have the whole numismatic world that can give them ideas as to what to put on the coins if they don't know what to put on.
I have had people who've suggested that for 2020 we should put something to commemorate COVID-19, but I don't know if that's such a good idea.
It's a very sensitive thing to put on a coin, I think. But yeah. So guys, thank you very much, Glenn, for that. And hopefully you can get more feedback for us for the next meeting. I'm going to put you on mute. I'm still allowing people in. But guys, the background, as you can see, my wall, my background, I'm just going to make you look at it again. Okay, so that is the cover of the book written by Francois Malan. And, you know, this is the book. All of you can see it. It is actually a very thought-provoking book. It is written for the numismatist in mind. It challenges the numismatic people around who've got a great passion, especially for this era of collecting, and to understand the ins and outs of what actually transpired. Now, I'm not going to steal Francois Malan's thunder because I've spent many an hour chatting with him, with the late Peter Wilson. We used to have three-way conversations regarding this book, so much so that you know, a lot of aspects had to be changed because of the views from the various sectors and new information that has come about. But today he's going to be our host, or our guest speaker, who's going to talk on various aspects from the book. And I'm going to, can everybody see Francois? Just give me a thumbs up. Yeah, okay. So Francois, just let me unmute you here quickly. All right, so Francois, welcome and thank you for making the time available. I know you're very, very busy with your academic stuff, especially with your lessons and the challenges you are faced with in terms of lectures, and you've been using technology to reach out to students as well. But Francois Malan, for those of you that don't know, you know, I'm privileged to be associated with this man, a great man, an academic, but more than that, he has a passion, and his passion is numismatics. He has taken it upon himself, and very unselfishly, to write many books on the numismatic front. And, you know, some of the books that stand out for me is this one called Kruger's Gold, his book on the decimal series, his book that he resurrected for the Day Numis Journal, the 50th anniversary of the Krugerrand. The list just goes on and on and on. And he hasn't stopped there. He assured me that, you know, and if I know the Francois that he is, there's something in the pipeline, and he will come and surprise us. So who knows? Maybe he's got the map, and we're going to go to the Kruger Millions next. But Francois, thank you for taking this time, and just give us a briefing with regards to your book. I mean, this book has been a journey. You know, at first it was a secret, and it was something that you shared with me, which then I couldn't wait for the book to actually come out. But what is the history of this book? What is the history behind the book before we divulge into some of the things that's going to challenge the people that are listening here today?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Anthony, and thank you very much for that very nice introduction. Look, I've written a number of these books, but I've told the numismatic audience a number of times now, my wife is not too happy with me writing all these books. So before there's any further books from me, you'll first have to speak to my wife. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen soon again, but it will probably over time. Hopefully we're going to get a follow-up on some of these books. Now, the history of this book is actually very interesting, because how it happened with these books is the one book followed on the other one. Because I started off with that book on the second decimal series, and I was able to discover a lot of information on the Krugerrand, and I wasn't keen to put it in that second decimal book, and that's how that 50th anniversary Krugerrand book was born. And then the first chapter, of course, those of you who've got a copy of that book, the first chapter of that Krugerrand 50th anniversary book is on the Kruger Millions. And then when I was finished with that book, I thought about that particular chapter, and I thought, wow, is this all we know about the Kruger Millions? If I really start digging, if I approach it like, I suppose, one of our research projects in engineering, or a master's or a PhD study, how much additional historic information can I actually collect on the Kruger millions? Because there's so many stories out there, and a lot of those stories are not verified. So if one really wants to assemble a historically accurate record of the Kruger millions, how far can you actually push it? And after 2017, when I was finished with that Krugerrand book, I started digging. So I went into the various university libraries and the archives, see what I could find on the internet. And out of this, this Kruger's Gold book was actually born. And you'll see, those of you who's got a copy of this particular book, there's a huge amount of references in this particular book, because I try to keep my opinions in this book as few as possible. Because I wanted to give the straight facts. The last chapter, of course, is my own interpretation, if some of this gold is still available or buried somewhere. But it's really, I suppose, an attempt to give as historically accurate account of the Kruger millions that is possible at this stage. Now, it would be interesting, all of you that's listening to this conversation, you're very knowledgeable on this particular topic. So as you read through it, and you discover additional information or particular aspects you disagree with, you're more than welcome to actually contact me and say, but hang on, Francois, we must actually look at this, or have you considered this? So I suppose in a nutshell, that's the background of the book, Anthony. And perhaps I should just add, look, it's, publishing books, of course, is a very difficult thing, because especially if you write a book on a particular hobby subject, you don't really sell a lot of these books. But strangely enough, this book has actually been quite successful, and I've already printed 200 of this particular book. Unfortunately, I don't have any copies available of this book anymore. So if you haven't got a copy yet, the only person who's still got copies available is Cliff van Rensburg and Randburg Coin. I think you'll be able to get a copy from him.
Thanks, Francois, for that. Francois, these books, every one of them are hard-covered. And just correct me if I'm wrong, are all signed or just the ones with Cliff van Rensburg?
Look, Cliff is the only source of books still available, and he made me sign a number of these books. So I suppose if you order one from him, you'll actually get a signed copy. So I can look, he'll force me to sign more if he actually runs out of the signed copies. So.
Okay, 100%. Thanks, Francois. That's useful information. Just around the book, there's been some very interesting facts around the 12th annual report of the Chamber of Mines that you've uncovered. You just want to give the people just some of your findings there before we go into other aspects of the numismatic side of things?
When I was busy with this research, one of the biggest finds for me was in fact the annual report of the Chamber of Mines that was actually published in 1902. And I was very surprised when I started reading through this annual report why previous researchers on the Kruger millions and people who actually wrote books on the Kruger millions, why they never stumbled upon this particular reference. Because it's probably one of the most valuable references in terms of the Kruger millions. Because the Chamber of Mines, of course, was representing all the mines in the Johannesburg area in those years. They couldn't meet during the war years, but after the war in 1902, they actually had their first meeting, and this annual report actually covered the years for 1900, 1901, and 1902. And of course, they were very concerned what happened to all the gold that was mined in the mines, and how the Boers actually spent all that gold. So they assembled incredibly careful records, accurate records of what happened to all of this gold. And because of that, it's probably the most accurate account of what happened to the Kruger millions, or the size of the original pot of gold that was available for the Kruger millions. And therefore, it's a bit of a mystery why other people never use this as a reference. But anyway, they've got very nice tables in that annual report, and some of those tables are actually reproduced in this particular book. So if you've got a copy, you'll see some of those tables. But the interesting thing, for example, I've got it here on a piece of paper. They've got very accurate accounts of the amount of gold available, and that's 642,000 ounces. And some of that gold could be accounted for, but according to their records, what was taken by the Boers was 445,000 ounces. So that's the theoretical upper limit of the Kruger millions. Now, of course, a lot of that 445,000 ounces was spent when the Boers still occupied Pretoria because their forces were in the field. They had to buy supplies. So a lot of that gold was already consumed before Pretoria was occupied. And the other interesting fact, which I never knew, and I only discovered it in this Chamber of Mines report, when the British forces occupied Pretoria, there was still a huge amount of gold left in the mint in Pretoria. And that was so surprising to me because I thought when Smuts actually evacuated or removed the last of that gold in Pretoria, he actually emptied the vaults of the mint. But that's not true because the amount, there was an amount of 43,000 ounces that was actually still left in the mint when the British actually occupied the town.
Good stuff. So this is more or less an accurate account of what gold the Transvaal government came under control with.
Yes, no, that's a very true statement. So a lot of people later on said, look, at Machadodorp, for example, there was railway trucks with 2 million worth of gold in them. But of course, that's not true because the maximum amount that at the beginning of the war was available to them was at 445,000. So one can actually start testing a lot of these accounts, whether it's true and whether it was really just hearsay that was reported in some of these historic documents.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Francois. Before I proceed with now some more interesting items that will interest most of the listeners, I just want to say that this meeting is actually being recorded. And if anybody wants a copy of it, I will mail you the link that you can access it directly from the cloud, okay? So there's no minutes, but if anybody wants to access this for later references, you're welcome, and I can mail you a link. The other thing that I did receive from Dr. Morgan Carroll was copies of the Vietnam numismatic minutes or journals. Unfortunately, it is written in Vietnamese, but if anybody would like a copy, contact me and I can mail it through to you. He did assure me that these minutes would be translated into English for further references. And if anybody wants them, you can either contact me or contact him. Is that good? All right, and also welcome to Professor Michael Laidlaw, who's on the line with us. Unfortunately, he still has that technology problem of his mic not working. But Michael Laidlaw is the...
Gezond. Cola Zero, yeah.
Can we mute these guys? So Michael Laidlaw is the president of the Pietermaritzburg Society, a very active society. Anybody wants to join that society, please contact him directly and he will give you information on how to join that society. It is a society that's proving to be a force to be reckoned with in South African numismatics. Francois, I'm going to go now straight into the statement, and there's some interesting facts here that is going to probably interest most of the listeners here, especially those people who collect ZAR coins, okay? Now, just a quick thing, the statement was in operation from the 2nd of November 1892 to around about the 31st of December 1897, okay? And that was open and they were minting coins during that period.
Yes, that's actually true, Anthony. In fact, before I started with this research, I didn't have enough information regarding the mint and I suppose the staff that worked there and the exact periods when it was open. But with enough digging, finally I could actually get some good records when it was operational. And during that first period, you are right, it was from the 2nd of November 1892. So even though we've got a lot of 1892 coins, of course, the bulk of those were minted in Berlin. So only in November 1892, the mint in Pretoria actually opened up. But very important, 31st of December 1897, the mint actually closed. And there was a very good reason for that, because the National Bank, of course, got this, what is the nice word from there? They got the concession to actually be the state bank. But as part of that concession, they had to open the state mint, equip it, and then give it to the state, and they would lease it from the state. The National Bank was never keen to actually establish the mint in Pretoria, because they knew, they did their sums, they were fancy financial guys, they knew this thing is never going to make money. So reluctantly, they actually opened this mint. And after a lot of difficulty, many years, they eventually, in 1997, gave up. They told the government, the Transvaal government, they're not making a profit out of this. And they started negotiations with the government to actually close down this particular mint. But during that negotiations, the mint was actually closed, and no minting of coins was actually took place. So the last time it was in operation, 31st of December, 1997. I don't know if you want to add anything before I continue.
Francois, so 1897,
1897, that was the other day. 1897.
When it closed was well before the war had actually started. Okay, so this had nothing to do with the war. This is the closure of the in 97 was purely financial and profitability.
Yes,
nothing else.
100% profitability.
So the interesting fact now is, and this is what everybody should be interested in, and I'll let you elaborate, but I'll give the dates, and I think I've got it correct. From the 1st of January, 1898 to the 30th of September, 1899, the mint was closed.
That is correct. So for almost 2 years, the mint was closed. And the only reason it reopened in September 1899 is because Smuts had a secret memorandum, and one of his recommendations is that the mint had to be reopened. So was it not for the war and Smuts's recommendation, the mint would have not been reopened. So almost 2 years the mint was actually closed.
But there's one record from Professor Arndt, and I'm not sure if you stumbled upon that. I think you have, where it does stipulate that 56 pounds of 1898 pennies was struck in 1898, even though the mint was closed.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and I actually make reference of that in the book. I must just add for the audience, I was very fortunate because when I had a draft copy of this book available, I sent a copy to Peter Wilson and to Anthony, and they were very kind. They actually read through this very carefully, and they actually gave me very good suggestions. And this is one of the things that they actually picked up. Arendt actually wrote in one of his books that 56 pounds worth of pennies was actually minted in 1898. I've included it with the appropriate reference in the book, but what we can debate is whether those coins were actually minted in 1898, because the mint, sometimes their records were not 100% accurate, because they reported, for example, on the number of coins minted in a particular year, but not necessarily the date which was used to actually mint those coins. So, for example, a lot of the 1898 pounds was possibly minted in 1900. So there's some doubts regarding those records. Were those pennies really minted in 98, as Arendt is stating, and where did he actually get that reference from? I don't know if we will ever know unless we actually get more accurate records from the mint in those years.
Just for everyone's knowledge, okay, 56 pounds might sound a small amount of money, but there's 240 pennies in a pound, and 56 pounds of pennies would have equated to 13,440 pennies. So that's the amount of pennies that would have been minted in 1898. Francois, I'm going to come back to something else that's very important, and as you mentioned, if the mint was closed in 1898, okay, and only opened in September of 1899. We have coins dated 1898, and that's a penny and a pound. Your theory behind this is that the possibility is that it could have been minted at a later stage.
Yes, that's my feeling at this stage. There's of course a third coin with the date 1898, and that's the Sammy Marks stickies. I don't know if you want to
Yes.
keep
Okay,
the
we'll
Sammy
come back.
Marks.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Let's just
Okay. But
for now.
Just these two coins. Look, we've got very good records from all the war records I was able to get. The 1898 pounds were definitely first minted, and we all know that, in fact, from September 1898. In fact, October. They only started opening the mint in October 1898. So those pounds were definitely minted in those years. So there's a strong possibility the pennies were only minted later, and they could have even been minted in 1900, for all we know. It was possibly souvenirs, we don't know. They could have been minted for Sammy Marks as well, because we all know that big bag of Sammy Marks pennies.
Yeah, and we do know that 1899, the dies were intercepted, and we never got any coins dated 1899, except for the hand-punched single 9 and the double 9.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the Sammy Marks stickies, okay? And although not a legal tender coin, it still proves to be one of the big 5 in terms of the ZAR series, because those coins were minted off the official dies. We do know that there was a full set of dies that's from a tikkie right up to the half a crown that has been cancelled. So the possibility of those coins being minted was great, but never got to see the day of light. Okay, so Sammy Marks was given the use of the mint for a day by President Kruger, because he was good buddies with him and for what he has done. And he decided to mint 218 tikkies in gold, okay? What is your theory around it? The mint was closed in 1898. He minted those coins. Is it in the same line with the 98 penny and pound? Could he have done it when the mint opened, or would they have given him special concession to open the mint for one day?
Look, one of the most exciting finds for me when doing this research, it was absolutely amazing when I actually stumbled upon this. It brings me back to that 12th annual report of the Chamber of Mines, published in 1902. And one of the things they actually kept incredibly good record of, they got those from the mint, is the gold that was actually consumed in the mint to actually strike gold coins. And that is contained in that Chamber of Mines report. And there's an entry, amazingly, in that Chamber of Mines report, where it actually states that 562 grams of gold was used during the war to strike 3 penny pieces. Now, 3 penny, that can only be the Sammy Marks stickies. So that Chamber of Mines report is the first piece of evidence I was able to stumble upon that's actually stating that these Sammy Marks stickies were actually struck during the war. Now, of course, we know the story behind the Sammy Marks stickies very well, and in a way, you've actually summarized it now, where he was given usage of the mint for a day for probably special services rendered. But the one question we as numismatists have never asked ourselves, when was that particular day? And nobody's thought about this. Perhaps it actually happened during the war. Now, look, so the evidence we've got so far is the mint was most definitely closed in 1898. It only reopened in 1899 when the war started. So there was probably no minting of coins taking place. And the Chamber of Mines report actually now states that so much gold was used during the war to actually strike 3 penny pieces. So combining those two, it all indicates that the Sammy Marks stickies were probably struck during the war. And just thinking about it, Sammy Marks was a good friend of Paul Kruger. It was wartime conditions in Pretoria at that stage. They needed to get favors from a lot of the industrial people, and Sammy Marks was, of course, in that league. So perhaps that day of usage of the mint was in connection with some of those services rendered during the early part of the war.
Yeah. So that's interesting facts, because many people would just assume that those coins were minted in 1898. And but here's the evidence in your book, which is documented. It's been gazetted that the mint was closed from the 1st of January 1898 to the 30th of September 1899. So that's interesting. So what we can ascertain from all the evidence and all the research is that those pennies and pounds could have been minted at a much later stage, and you saying probably in 1900.
Yeah, look, or early during the war, I suppose towards the end of 1898, 99. But of course, I suppose, yeah, it's actually a good question. It's a very nice area of research, and if we can actually find evidence that actually proves exactly when those Sammy Mark stickies were minted and why they were minted, that would actually be a fantastic find. And this is the exciting thing for me about this hobby, because somewhere that documents might actually still be lurking, and it would actually be fantastic if we can actually stumble upon those and actually write another nice book on it.
Yeah. Okay, your wife won't be upset about that.
She will be very upset.
Okay, I'm going to go to something that I think is very interesting, and I think everybody should take cognizance of this. And out of the research that we've done and what we've come up with, and this is based purely on what we have seen and availability, and that is the relative scarcity of the 1898 and 1890 and 1900 ponder. Not so much so the 1898, and I think the focus that we need to go through here is the 1900 pond. Now there's various aspects to the 1900 pond that we need to talk about, okay? Is number one is firstly is the Van Niekerk forgeries, all right? And we all know that the well-defined breasts has always been passed as a restrike, okay, in all instances. Genuine 1900 ponder were always classified as flat-breasted coins, okay? That's what we know. But I think, and I'm going to share something here that might interest people, and we'll get down to the nitty-gritties of scarcity, and I think I've done some work up for you as well, which you can elaborate on, which was pulled out from NGC. I just want to throw something for everyone to view, and you can elaborate on this here, okay? And this is out of your book, all right? And this is basically, you want to speak about this, Francois? Go ahead. This is the cancelled die that was intercepted or given to SAP in terms of the investigation.
You're doing so well, Anthony. You can actually continue. It's actually interesting. I've got so many interesting facts in this book. I actually forgot what I wrote in this particular book. So before this meeting this morning, I actually had to read through it, and I didn't get to this chapter again. But anyway, the story is I had lengthy discussions with Tommy Sassine regarding the Van Niekerk restrikes. Because he was actually called as a witness during the trial when Van Niekerk was arrested. In the end, he was never called because there was some kind of a plea bargain. But Tommy told me the rest of the story, and the police actually called him in several times, and he had to examine a number of dies and try to identify the dies which were actually used to strike the coins. And this particular specimen is a lead impression that actually came off some of those cancelled dies. And you'll immediately see, look, it's a 1900 die, and you'll immediately see that the breast of the eagle is actually full. It's not the 1900 pounds ponder, which we actually know with the flat breast. And then Tommy explained the whole thing to me is that the flat breast of the eagle was never a die problem of the 1900 dies. It was actually a problem with the setting of the machines in that state mint. And because they didn't apply enough pressure, of course, Kruger's head is on the other side of that eagle. There was metal starvation, and that's why the eagle's breast is flat. So gradually they were losing pressure on those machines in the state mint, and that's why the eagle's breast is flat. And probably what happened during the war years, there's a lot of evidence which I stumbled upon, is they actually tried to increase the production rate at the mint because there was a severe shortage of minted sponda during the war. And of course, if they were increasing the rate, then they probably didn't worry too much about the settings of the machine, for example. I can't remember these coins. Glenn can probably fill us in, but these production ponda probably were only given one striking. But anyway, the bottom line of all of this is we've got evidence now that it's not a dye problem, because this eagle's breast is full. And last year, was it last year, Anthony? I can't remember. There were some dyes that actually surfaced in Denmark that was for sale as well. And if you examine those dyes very carefully, the 1900 one, the breast of the eagle was actually full on that particular dye as well. So it's actually a myth that gradually the master dyes actually got worn, and that's why the breast eagle, the breast of the eagle is actually flat. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Anthony.
No, 100%. So just to reiterate that this lead striking is of official dyes that were given to SAPS to strike an example to compare it with the with the forgeries.
Yes. So that was a striking that actually came out of official dyes. That was actually the police actually assembled all these dyes from the museums and from probably the mint. Tommy mentioned to me that there was a huge number of these dyes. And it's interesting what happened to those dyes now, because I recently made inquiries to, I can't remember that museum in Pretoria now, Anthony, but they can't give me access to the 1900 dyes anymore.
Okay, so that's the picture of the 1900 pond. And if you look quite closely to this picture, on the left is the restrike, which is the Van Niekerk restrike, and on the right is the genuine 1900 pond.
Okay, and that's of course a very nice photograph, and just to re-emphasize, it seems, and I suppose we can debate it, because possibly not everybody is going to agree with this, because it's been entrenched in our numismatic literature probably for the last 40 years, that a lot of people actually felt it was worn dyes that actually caused that. But there's a possible new theory, and we've got the evidence now that in fact it was just poor strikings from the mint in Pretoria, possibly not enough pressure on those machines in those years, in the later years.
So Francois, what you're actually saying here is that we cannot actually discard every single clear defined breast as Van Niekerk forgeries.
No, I think we can probably, because all the official ones were struck in the mint in Pretoria with the weak pressures. So, yes. So any breast that's of outstanding quality were probably struck in a machine at a later date with much higher pressures.
100%. Francois, let's talk about scarcity. All right. We do know that, and I'm going to put up something here for everyone to see, is, and please mind because I use my fingers to strike, and this is purely from NGC, and this is their census report, okay? We know for a fact that the 1900 pond in Hearn's book, there's a mintage figure of 788,000. The 1898 pond, we have a mintage figure of 136,870. Okay, why is it that we find the 1898 has a far less mintage than the 1900? Why is it that we find so many 1898 ponder and so few 1900 ponder in the industry?
Do you want me to comment on this, Anthony?
Yes, comment. And Francois, if you look at, can you see the picture on the screen, okay?
Yes, I see it.
All right. So So the number where it says 1898 and the arrow is leading there, 1,556 is the number that's graded in C, from the lowest grade to the highest grade, out of 136,000. Whereas a 1900 pond, there's 352 only graded out of 788,000. How can we explain this?
This is another fascinating story. Now, of course, when the mint reopened in 1899, those 99 dies were intercepted, so they could only use the 98 dies. And they started minting with those. Now, unfortunately, from records I was able to collect as well, is the 1900 dies actually arrived quite late. And there's a record from F.W. Reitz. Of course, he was the state secretary and he communicated to Leitz in Europe. And he noted that the dies are late and they're probably going to use these 98 dies until March 1900. So what probably happened is they actually struck the 98 ponder from October 1899, probably up to possibly the end of March 1900. And then if you think about it, then you've only got April and May left. Those were the only 2 months in which Pretoria was still in Boer hands. So they only had 2 months left probably to use the 1900 dies to strike the 1900 ponder. And so the feeling is that the 1900 ponder is actually much scarcer than the 1898 ponder. Now, those mintage figures you've got there on the screen, 136 and versus 788. There's a lot of records, and even people like Beckblake and Arendt, I think, in their books actually mention this, is that the mint had the habit of, their mintage figure was the number minted in a particular year and not necessarily the date on the coin. So that 136 was, of course, minted in 98, and then in 1900 they had 7 months to actually mint that 788, but a large proportion of that 788 was actually still minted with the 98 dies. So the big proportion of these coins is the 98, and we see it in all the old catalogs, and even nowadays the 98 ponder is much more common than the 1900 ones. Now this this creates the interesting question: have we for many years actually undervaluated the value of these 1900 ponder? Perhaps they're much scarcer than we currently think.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm just going to show the viewers something very interesting that I picked up. I haven't discussed this with you, but I'm just going to do that quickly. All right. This is a extract from a coin auction that was held in 1975. It was held by Elie Levine. It was all the coins in his personal collection of high quality that he did the book, The Counterfeits of the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republic. The interesting thing for me here is that sorry, I think I've cut the wrong piece here. Sorry, let me get to the correct one. Yeah, the interesting piece that comes out of this is that, sorry, just give me a minute. Okay, sorry, I've copied the wrong piece. But the interesting piece that comes out of that is, in Elie Levine's catalog, we all know that currently, 1893, 1894, 1895, 1896, 1897, the ponds in high quality or high grade is super rare. Especially the 1895, okay? In Elie Levine's auction, his estimate for a brilliant uncirculated 1900 pond, the estimate far exceeded that of a 95, 96, and 97 pond. That was his estimate for the 1900 pond. He even made a reference to say that a similar pond sold in his previous auction for a higher value. Did he know as well that the 1900 pond is exceedingly rare in uncirculated, or the mintages of those coins could be far lower than 788,000?
That's actually a very good question, and I've seen in some of the early catalogs that they actually valued the 1900 pond slightly higher than we actually do in modern times. But the one I can't forget now is the first Kaplan catalog. It would be interesting, and I should have done it before the meeting, just gone to that first 1950 Kaplan catalog and just see how Kaplan actually rated the 1900 pond versus the 98 one.
Okay, 100%. So to summarize the 1900 pond, what would you leave the collectors that's listening with?
If you haven't got a nice uncirculated 1900 pond, see if you can find yourself a nice one, because they might become quite valuable in future.
And I'm thinking that this is so in similar line with the 93 penny. Nobody actually knows how many were minted. There's no official numbers.
Yes.
So the 1900 pond and the figure that we have could include 1898 ponder, but the actual mintage of the 1900 pond could be far, far less.
We can actually guess because there were certain bottlenecks in terms of the production in Pretoria. So they, and it's even mentioned in the records, they could only strike 100,000 ponder a month. So if they struck it for 2.5 months using the 1900 dies, there's probably 250,000 1900 ponder struck versus the catalog number of 788.
Okay.
255th, and then the 98 ones are probably 100 plus another 500, 700,000 probably for the 98 ones.
Okay. There's Gert on the line. Furstenberg, I think I pronounced the name right. He's got a question.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the very interesting information you've been sharing thus far. Just something back to the weak strike on the 1898 ponder. It's something which has always been interesting for me. If I can share my screen quickly, Anthony, if it's maybe possible to allow me to share screen. If we look at the 1898 single 9 strike, let me just share here, just
it's interesting. I never looked at this, but I'm guessing where you're heading, Gert, and this is going to be very interesting.
It's the breast is quite flat, like we can see on most of the other.
Are you able to? Are you here?
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Sorry, let's just try.
I've made host. I've made you the host.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, but if you look at specifically at the details in the hair and the details in the eyebrows, which is much more prominent than that you will see on the normal 1898 ponder.
Okay.
So, I mean, isn't that also part of the metal depletion, like you mentioned earlier, and why we have such weak strike or weak hairlines on Paul Kruger's head on the normal 98 ponder?
Possibly. It's interesting, this, even though this, I think you're right in terms of the hair comment, but just going to the eagle's breast, it looks like there's a bit more detail on this eagle than there is on the earlier photograph, which Anthony just showed. And of course, this pond was struck in this one was really struck in 1899, so it was some of the first ones which were struck. And they probably, the mint officials probably took a bit more care with this because the British weren't at the doorstep of Pretoria yet. So there wasn't that significant pressure to actually rush minting these. So I suppose it does make sense that this one, even though it's still not 100%, is of a better quality. Look, there's the one Anthony is showing, and you can see that one is probably in a worse condition than the single 9.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
But a very, very good comment. Just to re-emphasize, I think your comment is right. Even though it was a special coin, that you can even see that the hair is not of a good quality. So just think about it. When they restarted that mint at the beginning of the war, the mint master was still in Pretoria on leave. So they had to make do with the staff that they probably could get quickly assembled to reopen the mint. And did they have enough technical expertise to actually reopen that mint to the quality that it was before it was closed? That's a good question, and we need to investigate that in future.
So guys, we're not going to keep you much longer. We said we want to try and keep these meetings run about an hour 15 minutes. We run about towards the end of it. This is the cover of the book. It is a brilliant book. It's called Kruger's Gold by Francois Malan. Hardcover. Trust me, it is got a wealth of information. Francois did say that, you know, when he did his research and when he was writing the book, he wrote it with a numismatic flair. He wrote it for the numismatist. So I suggest, if you don't have a copy of the book, get a copy from Randburg Coin. And if you have any questions, you need Francois's email, you know, we can always forward it to you and you can correspond with him directly. I'm sure that he's welcome to entertain any questions that you guys have, or any new evidence that you might have regarding this period of collecting, which is the ZAR. Another interesting area to speak about would be the Veldpond, but we need to do a little bit more research in that area. So is there anyone else that would like to ask any questions or say anything? Just send me a message on chat quickly and we can allow you to speak. All right, if there's nobody, yes.
Anthony, just a final comment from me. That photograph, just for the interest of the audience who hasn't got a copy of that book, that photograph you showed of the halfpenny, of the Kruger halfpenny, that's included in the book as well. But I'm actually in two minds of that with regards to that particular halfpenny. I'm not sure if it's actually a real coin. It could have been, I suppose, a photographic forgery, because this person, when he wrote the book, he wanted to illustrate all the coins. And if you carefully look at that half, that might have been written into a photograph. So that's one of the interesting things. And Glenn made the comment now that somebody in Namibia has actually got a halfpenny. But it's actually strange that it only surfaces now after this book has been published. Why did it not surface earlier? So just something interesting. I personally still, even though the Mint Act of 1891 did allow for a halfpenny to be minted, I'm still suspicious they probably didn't mint any.
Okay, 100%. Remember something, that photograph was done in 1903 and published in a numismatic journal at The Hague. So yes, but the picture of that half a penny is far smaller than the normal penny.
Yeah, that's why I enjoy numismatic research so much. Just imagine the excitement if we really stumble upon that halfpenny.
Well, the ball is in Glenn Schoeman's court now. So he's got to start chasing this guy somewhere around the world, whoever has called him, and he's going to have to feed back on us to us at the next meeting. But I believe Glenn wants to say something quickly.
Yes, Anthony, thank you. If I may, there's something that I didn't sort of finish telling you guys about the South African mint situation. As I said, the mint in essence is only minting circulation coins right now, and not Krugerrands and not silver Krugerrands and not numismatic stuff. It would appear that they've now discovered that the minting of Krugerrands is important. Okay, so they will maybe be starting in the next 4 weeks. However, they have said that they still feel that the minting of any numismatic product, as we would know, is not a priority. So those of us who have bought any coins for 2020, I don't know if there are going to be any more coins for 2020. We might find that the one thing that's going to be interesting is that in the future, coins minted in 2020 might be pretty scarce and rare, because no one can tell us whether they're going to be minting any more coins or not. So interesting factor. They might not mint for the rest of the year, 2020 coins. What has been minted may be worth buying. I don't know if we can still get it from the mint. I don't know. And one other thing I can tell you is that the platinum coin that the South African Mint has made available through Rand Refinery, I believe, is sold out. So those might also become very, very sought after. Okay, if I may just thank everybody for being there. It was great to chat to some of the guys again. And Anthony, thank you to you for arranging all this. Thank you.
100%. I just got one more question from somebody that's asking, what about the blank felt font? I only know of one genuine blank felt font that has been graded, and that comes out of the Baldwin collection. That's in a prominent ZAR collector's collection here in KZN. The blank ponder that you're talking about could be the 1900 blank ponder, not the blank felt ponder. I'm not sure if that's answering your questions. Those are blanks that were in the mint that were not struck as yet. Those are the rim and rimless. Francois, do you have anything to add to that?
I didn't stumble upon any documentation in terms of blank veldponde. The one thing I did stumble upon, however, is it appears as if they actually ran out of gold, and that gold that was remaining to strike the veldponde, it seems as if it came out of the Pilgrim's Rest gold and the plates they were actually scraping there. So the other interesting fact is similar to the Burgersponde. All the veldponde were possibly minted from gold coming out of Pilgrim's Rest, and that makes them so much more special.
100%. Well, I'll share with you something that I found regarding the veldpond and the striking of some items for a company in the 70s. But I'll discuss that with you offline, and maybe we can share with the audience at the next meeting. Guys, Francois, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your input. I think everybody enjoyed this round of meeting on a Saturday afternoon. It's conducive for everyone. You know, we don't have to get out of the house and rush about and get to a venue. Everyone's here and anyone can share. Just remember, guys, if you want to talk, you want to share items, you can do it. We got the capabilities of doing it, so everybody can participate. Our intention for the next meeting would be to create an item of interest where you can show an item of interest. We'll create a theme for that evening. We're not going to spend too much of time around that, possibly about 15 minutes to give the guys a chance to show something from their collection and speak about it. And then we can go into discussing more about South African numismatics. Our intention for these meetings is to make it interactive and also to educate all the collectors around the country and the world. And like I say, we're privileged to have people from both the East, Central, and the West participating. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Glenn, for your input. And we really appreciate your time. So until next time, hasta la vista.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thanks. Cheers, guys. Ciao. Just remember something. Anybody wants a copy of this transcript, we've got it saved, and I can send you the link and you can view it at any time at your leisure. Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye.